What's up, guys? Welcome back to Nope or Dope Reviews. I'm Steven. This is my wife, Jen. We have our review for Thor: Love and Thunder. We just got out of the theater. This is going to be a spoilers review, so if you haven't seen Thor: Love and Thunder, you probably don't want to check this out just yet. So go ahead and watch the movie. When you're done watching it, come back and check out this review. We're going to go over generally our thoughts of the movie, what we thought was nope, what we thought was dope, and then we're going to decide if it is nope or dope. So my first initial thoughts of this movie, I love the comedy coming from Thor: Love and Thunder. Taika Waititi, that's his thing. He loves comedy. He may have taken it a little too far in this movie, but almost every joke landed for me. The goats were great in this movie. Love the goats in this movie. Every time they screamed, the theater was laughing. Wasn't expecting that from the goats. We saw them in the trailer. Wasn't expecting them just to be screaming all the time. The one scene that really got to me is when the goats flew right into the planet. I thought they were dead when they were screaming, but they weren't. They survived. So that's the first thing that jumps out to me with this movie. It's a comedy. I know a lot of people going into this may not expect that. We got that from Ragnarok, but this definitely turned it up even higher, a higher notch in comedy. Not everyone's about that type of comedy. I love movies like Dumb and Dumber. There's a lot of silly, stupid comedy in this that worked for me. How did that work for you?
I'm actually shocked because everyone knows I'm not about the corny humor.
Yeah.
But this didn't land corny for me. It was hilarious. The goats were literally the main characters of this movie for me.
Okay.
And the chicken, or rooster, whatever that was.
Yeah, what is that? The chicken at the very beginning. Yeah,
they were hilarious. And also another character that I thought was just, I don't know why, I just loved and killed it, was the little, like, troll guy who reminded me of, like, a mix between Troll and the character Willow.
Okay.
If you guys remember Willow from back in the day. Yeah, the humor was just on. It was on, and it was so good, and I never felt like it was too much, too corny, or too long into the movie. I felt like it should have been throughout the whole movie. But yeah, I loved it.
Okay. Yeah, so the comedy, for a lot of people, might not work. Definitely, that was a dope part of the movie for me. It was the comedy, so great job, Taika, with the comedy again. I think for some people, if you want to touch on this, I think the tonal shifts in this movie was pretty jarring at times. It worked for me, maybe because I knew a lot of the storyline and I knew a lot of this movie ahead of time. I knew what to expect. But the shift from jokey comedy on every scene, I could see why someone would be like, I don't know how I'm feeling. There's so much movement from super funny to scary to sad, especially jumping from Thor and the jokesters with Gore the God Butcher, which most of his scenes were all pretty much serious. There's some funny scenes with Gore. So I just want to touch on Gore the God Butcher first. I feel he's a top 4 MCU villain. There's a reason why they hired Christian Bale to be Gore the God Butcher. When I first saw him in pictures, we saw him in the action figures, I was like, oh, this is not the Gore the God Butcher from the comics. He didn't have the same look. He had that powdery white look, but it was basically Christian Bale with white makeup. And I think they did that because Christian Bale is such a great actor, and he acted his butt off in this movie. I really love Gore the God Butcher. He was definitely scary. He had different emotions. He went from comedy in some scenes when he was talking to the children. Every scene you saw him in, he had that creepy makeup on. I loved his whole look. He had the Necrosword that is different than the comics. It was killing him essentially, which was a huge part of this movie, a huge part of the plot. I thought Christian Bale's Gore the God Butcher was amazing. What do you think about Gore?
Well, first I want to touch on the tonal shift in the movie.
Okay.
Because for me, that's what kind of like, how do I explain it? That's what kind of killed the movie for me. I still think the movie is great as a whole. But when it was like that first hour was like so good, and then the tonal shift was literally at that hour mark, and then I was like, oh God, like I just wasn't feeling it. I know you were feeling Gore. I was not feeling him at all. First time I saw him, I was like, oh God, he looks like a mix between the character from the movie Powder, if anybody remembers that,
right,
and the character from Hellraiser in one.
Yeah, I could see that.
I just didn't like the way Gore was portrayed in it. I don't know if it was a Christian Bale thing, or I can't pinpoint what it is, but I just wasn't feeling him. I wasn't feeling the character as a whole. And yeah, I kind of felt like it was like he's the Debbie Downer of a good movie, is what I was kind of feeling.
Yeah, and I think I definitely could see that with the tonal shifts with the funny parts and all his scenes. What did it for me with Gore from the get-go, the main focus was Gore the God Butcher.
Mm-hmm.
The movie started off with him and his dying daughter, basically in the desert. It seems like he's some sort of priest. He prays to the gods. His prayers aren't answered. Yeah. He finally meets the god. He's like, oh, you're here to bring me whatever, food, life, and the god's just brushing him off. Basically, he's about to kill him when he gets a necrosword, and then he kills the god because he's like, these gods are worthless. What have I been wasting my time on praying to these gods who've basically abandoned us? So I loved the theme of Gore, the reason why he did what he did. I think the best villains are ones where you can sort of feel for what they're going, or at least understand why they did it, even though murdering people, butchering gods is not the way to do it. I did feel his emotion throughout the whole movie, what the whole plot of the movie was, and it was really trying to find his daughter again, right? Go to eternity at the end of the movie, which eternity looked pretty cool, pretty comic accurate. It was kind of flat. There was no like depth to eternity, but when he finally gets to eternity at the end, he gets his wish, brings his daughter back, which I assume the daughter's name is Love, right? And I just love Gore's character throughout. Obviously. I wish he was in the movie more.
Wow. Okay.
I wish he was in the movie more. I wanted to see him butcher more gods. I think that's why the tonal shifts were so jarring, is we didn't see enough of him. So when we did, it goes from comedy to darkness.
Yeah, and other movies have done that, and it's been perfectly fine. Like Guardians of the Galaxy always has that good humor and banter, and then it can go dark. It felt like it could have been two different movies for me. Yeah. Like, there's the gore, there's the humor and all that with Thor, and then there's, the love and banter between Thor and whatever she called herself.
Mighty Thor.
Mighty Thor.
Yeah.
Which that was amazing. There was just so much. It just could have been separated for me. Or it could have been done differently, because like I said, with Guardians, you have all that good humor. You have all that banter. And it can all coexist in one movie and not feel like it's literally like a line was drawn in the movie. And it was like, this was part of the movie, and now we're going to go on to the other part of the movie where it's about gore and all this other stuff. It was like, it should have just intertwined more for me.
So you felt it was like two separate movies. The first half you enjoyed more, you'd say?
Yes.
Than the second half?
Like, there was so much. Like... there was so much good in the first half of the movie, and then the other half, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, it really is. Like, even the title, and the title has many meanings. Like, one part is love, and one is thunder. So that's part of what I loved about this movie, was the actual love part. It was really the MCU's first romantic comedy, really. For the first two movies with Jane and Thor, I mean, it was okay, but you didn't really feel that connection between the two. It wasn't until she skips Ragnarok completely. We never thought Natalie Portman would ever come back. But when they bring her into Love and Thunder, you finally feel that connection, for at least for me. And I think that was what was better about Thor: Love and Thunder than Ragnarok is there was more heart to it, or there were times where I really felt it, especially when you saw Natalie, in the hospital. Anytime she put Mjolnir down, she was basically dying. So I think the heart for me really
saved it
for me.
That's how I feel.
No, but it's the heart and comedy. So if it was just the heart and comedy, I still would have been fine with it. But I did love Gore in the movie, and there are some tonal shifts. I wish it blended a little bit better, and I think what could have helped it a little more was a longer runtime. This is the shortest MCU movie ever. I feel a lot was cut out. I think in an article they said there was like a 3 to 4 hour cut of this movie.
Okay.
And I think they cut a lot of Gore the God Butcher's butchering up. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really did feel for the very first time the connection between Thor and Mighty Thor. It was the first time I really felt like they did love each other. And I feel like that was one thing at the end of the movie that kind of saved it for me, was just seeing that connection and seeing all of that. And there were so many clips with her that were so powerful for me, like the one where it broke apart, the hammer,
yeah.
Broke apart and it goes back together and all that. Like there was so many good, powerful scenes with her that I felt like, okay, I knew. Like I even looked at him. I'm like, okay, this is is her last time in this role. But yeah, I just couldn't get over the whole Gore thing. I know maybe I might get a lot of hate for it, but it just wasn't for me. It almost feels like they just didn't know how to put the two storylines together and mesh them well, and it was just kind of just done.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised because it seems like the MCU movies, they're starting to get shorter and shorter. Doctor Strange 2 was shorter than expected. Multiverse of Madness, that was like a little over 2 hours. This is the shortest ever. So I think the longer cut would have benefited this movie. Like we didn't even see Jane actually turn into Mighty Thor.
Yeah.
Like we saw the hammer starting to come together, then it cut away.
Yeah.
So again, back to the tonal shifts, I think they could have held on to some of the more intimate moments, the more serious moments a little bit longer, so you could feel it a little more than jumping right into, Korg's head just joking around. Which now,
oh my God, is that what's his name? The stone guy?
Yeah, Korg.
Oh, he was one of my favorites too.
And that's
oh my
Taika
God, when
Waititi.
she had him tied to the back of her with her dreads, dead. That was one of my favorite parts ever. Like, so good.
And I thought
so
Korg
good.
was dead.
Wow, so good. Like, there were so many good characters in this. Yeah, that was just... But I will say, and I also did note in my head, that when that tonal shift happened, everyone started to go to the bathroom in the movie theater. So it was like...
You need a break, right?
No, but it was also like, it kind of boring. Yeah.
Okay. Another character I'd like to say or talk about who I loved was Russell Crowe's Zeus.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So wasn't expecting the accent. I don't think I really heard his accent in the trailer. I think he was trying to be Greek, but he had a little twist to it. You couldn't even understand some of the things he was saying.
Yeah.
But just his physical comedy in this, doing the moves, almost like karate moves with the thunderbolt, holding his little skirt. Well, it's not a skirt, but
the
going
second
down
that
the stairs.
that they showed him head to toe with that, it looked like a Greek tennis skirt. I literally so good. And then his hair, like the way that his hair was so good. Like, but his accent wasn't Greek. It was like Greek French. It was like something really weird. It was like all these accents like into one. But he was good.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts of the movie was just that whole scene at Omnipotent City with all the gods. You talked about the troll-looking guy.
Yeah.
It looks like it was just head and feet.
Yeah, like it was hilarious.
And I'm gonna go see it again, and I'm gonna just look in the background to see what all these other gods are. That's one of the funniest scenes. And
then when he threw his little Thunderbolt, and there was something that he said that I was like, dying over. It was like, you thought I was going to give it to you or something that he said.
remember what he said.
I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, oh my God. Like, he was spot on. He was so good. So good.
And what do you think of actually seeing Thor's rear end?
So good.
They blocked it out in the trailer, but they actually
Yeah.
it was full on.
Now, we don't know if that was actually Chris Hemsworth.
I'm gonna
'Cause they
guess
have
it is.
No, but they have people that come in just to do a butt scene.
He's pretty fit, and I think
I'm just saying, you don't know just because he's fit
It's
doesn't
very,
mean...
very balanced. Very balanced. The one character that kind of didn't have a big role, and I get it, there's not a lot of time, was Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie. You know, I expected her to be king of Asgard, of New Asgard. She was, but she was just kind of like...
Yeah.
There was not much of her going on. I did like
I feel
her
like they were
with...
setting that up for her to have a bigger role.
But they...
Yeah.
But they just...
I
She
know.
didn't really have that much to do.
Yeah.
She, her best scenes were with Natalie. I think they had a good little combination going
Yeah.
on. But Tessa Thompson definitely got the shaft in this movie. It's not like I'm going to watch a Thor movie just to see Tessa, but there's so many
There could
moving
have been
parts.
more of her than Gore for me.
Gore.
Yeah.
I loved Gore. Visually, I thought this movie was visually pretty stunning.
Yeah.
A lot of people had complaints about the visual effects. Hey, this movie was shot during the pandemic. They had to take some shortcuts,
Yeah,
probably.
you could tell. Yeah.
And who knows if they had to take shots at different places, different times. Not everyone was there. But I thought one of the most beautiful scenes in the movie was the black and white scene.
Oh.
Right? And the shadow realm.
That was your most...
I thought that was. I think it was gorgeously shot. You could tell it's green screen or whatever that thing is called that they shoot the Star Wars shows on.
I don't know. I thought the most beautiful shot for me, I thought, was when it was almost like heaven-ish, where they were like on the water, and it was Gore.
Yeah, at the very end.
Yeah, and Thor, and he was talking to him about his daughter.
Yeah.
That to me was like breathtaking. That was the only time I liked Gore.
Yeah, so again, at the end too, I think that's why they didn't change Gore's look, because they wanted to really show Christian Bale's acting chops. And you definitely have to see it in his face. There was a lot of facial acting. I mean, it's not just your voice or how you project things. All his acting was in his face.
It was.
You saw his anger, you saw
Yeah.
his pain, you saw his suffering. That's why I felt a lot for this character. And I love Christian Bale, so I'm biased when it comes to it. But definitely could have seen more of him. And I think maybe you've liked him a little bit more, maybe, if he was in the movie a little bit longer. This movie could have definitely used 15 more minutes at least to just fill it out a little bit more. One of the scenes that I didn't like, which was comedic, maybe they went a little too far, is when Thor gave the kids the powers.
Yeah, I wasn't actually feeling that all, but our youngest loved it. Like when the girl had the teddy bear and was like, he had brought his little, like, he had brought a little baby blanket with him to the movie theater, and he had taken his blanket and wrapped it up, and he was doing that. So I think for the kids, okay, I get it. Like, they wanted to do that for the kids, and it was funny, but yeah, fell flat for me.
Odd. Didn't think Thor could call the power through Zeus's thunderbolt, but he was able to and gave kids powers. I mean, it's funny, but again, it was about to get to a serious moment. They could have just not done that.
Away with that. Yeah, agree.
Thor could have just destroyed or killed the I forgot what those black characters are in the
He called them aliens.
whatever. Yeah, the aliens. Whatever the aliens were. There's a name. I just totally drew a blank on it. He could have just killed them on their own and sent Axel.
Axel.
I love the
God,
name.
and Axel, because he was like, "Hello, I'm Axel. Do you not hear Guns N' Roses playing all the time? Come on." It was, and the music, dead. So good, spot on. Loved it. Sorry, did.
Sorry, camera died for a second there. So for me, I didn't love the music as much as I thought I would. So here's the thing. I think 4 of the songs were Guns N' Roses, and I'm good with Guns N' Roses. But I don't know, maybe it was our theater, or maybe it was intentional. They jump into certain parts of the song, like maybe just the guitar parts, but it wasn't loud. Like, it almost felt like, yeah, like it was edited kind of funny.
I didn't feel that at all. Okay.
Yeah, like I wish there was more music. But usually in Ragnarok, it worked perfect when we got the immigrant song at the very end. That was great. I think they try to use it a little too much in this, and they were using different parts of different songs. I don't know
disagree.
why. It just didn't work for me, the music, and it was so soft. Was that intentional?
Because sometimes music is like they'll have music come on and it's like blares and it shocks you, and sometimes it's so loud that it gets annoying. So I had no problem with the music. I loved how it started, how it ended, how it sounded. I loved it all.
Like Welcome to the Jungle worked best for me. I think it went with the action at the beginning when he did his Jean-Claude Van Damme split between the two things. We saw that in the trailer. I wish we didn't see it in the trailer.
I know,
but it was still funny because he held on to the two ships for so long.
It was good.
It just worked really good. The Guardians are barely in this.
I actually thought they were going to be in it a bit more, but that's okay.
They ended Avengers Endgame with Thor and the Guardians, so it was just a general transition, but it was a Thor Jane Foster movie, so they had to get them out as soon as possible. Maybe they put the Guardians in there to sell more tickets, like you're expecting to see Thor and the Guardians.
Nah, I don't think so.
Guardians sell tickets.
Oh, yeah,
so,
I know, but I didn't go in there like, hey, I need to see the Guardians.
Yeah. I think it helps, but they were out. They were out immediately. And I didn't need to see any of the Guardians. We'll see them in Guardians Volume 3 coming up in the next couple years or so. But, yeah, overall, let's talk about our, if it's nope or dope, the overall thoughts. Do you want to start? You want me to start?
I will start.
Okay, go ahead.
He's not going to let me give it a happy medium. He wants it just nope or dope.
It's nope or dope, so you have to choose on this one.
So I'm going to give it a dope because the comedy was so good. The characters were so good minus Gore. And it was just a feel-good time. Feel-good time. So I liked it. Good summertime movie.
Right. So I'm sure you're not surprised. This is definitely a dope for me. If I had to choose right now, I would have to say, just coming out of the theater, Ragnarok is probably the better movie overall.
Yes.
It's a tighter story. There's comedy in it, but it's not all over the place. The editing was a little bit better.
Agreed.
Definitely love the villain in this one more than actually I did Hela in Ragnarok. So what did it for me in this movie was just the overall heart of this movie. It's not a movie for everyone. Not every MCU fan's gonna love a romantic comedy. I do like those type of movies. I like the humor in the movie. I love the love story between Jane and Thor that we've been wanting to have this whole time, but we finally got it. Although it was super quick, super short, resulting in Jane's death. I did feel it in the end. Not everyone might feel that emotion, but throughout the movie, I felt something. Whatever it was, I felt it. It was the chemistry with Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman together. It worked for me. Taika is great at comedy, physical comedy, stupid jokes. I love stupid, corny jokes. I really do. Could there have been better pacing, better transition between joke and dark? Yeah, there could have been. I said earlier, this movie should have been a lot longer. A lot was definitely cut out. Gore is a top 4 villain for me, just because Christian Bale. I don't think anyone else could have played that role. I probably would have agreed with you if it was a different actor, but he acted the hell out of that role as Gore the God Butcher. And going into Thor 5, going into Thor 5, we didn't talk about the credit scenes. It didn't do it much for you, the credit scenes, but the credit scenes did it for me. I can't wait to see Hercules in it. What are they going to do with Natalie and a Mighty Thor now that she's in Valhalla? Is that it? Does that end her story? Or does she come back in the future? I'm hoping she comes back in some sort of way. But that's our review, spoiler review of Thor Love and Thunder. We both gave it a dope, so that's a double D. If you've watched it, if you like it, type dope in the comments and make this a triple D. Jen's ready to leave. So if you're new to the channel, you like what we're doing, check out our reactions, our other reviews, and subscribe. We'll check you out later. Peace.